meeting to order. All right. Reading a notice, Steve.
Okay, in accordance with Chapter 231, BL 1975, the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required, specifying the time and location of such notice is being sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Times of Trenton, posted on the municipal public notice meeting bulletin board, and filed with the township clerk.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite everybody for a flag salute, and at the end, we will stand for a moment of silence for those who served and currently serve our country. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Danielle, roll call.
Chairman Austin?
Here.
Ms. Arpaia?
Here.
Mr. Barthelmess?
Here.
Mr. Cadigan?
Here.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Mr. Lambros?
Here.
Mr. Borghese?
Here.
And for the record, Mr. Sinha is absent today. Mr. Borghese, alternate one, will be seated for Mr. Sinha.
Thank you very much. Are there any public comments for anything that's not on the agenda for this evening? Yes? Sure, come on down.
As long as it's not regarding the application.
What happened? I don't have an just a long-term resident. My name's Jody Knox, from the address.
Just yeah, just put your address. I don't have to swear you in though.
94 Agnes Road. I just have, I'm sure that you're aware of what's happening in adjacent towns regarding LLCs and property. And I'm doing my own research regarding the allowable uses for perhaps RUP zoning. And there's LLCs in town that purchase pieces of property. I'm trying to understand down the line if one day, if they actually can, because I'm seeing the childcare provision, I'm reading the statutes regarding that, but I also see that there's something regarding 1 acre. They can do 1 acre, they can submit for that per subdivision. And I guess my question is the zoning board, is there some sort of stopgap? Is this sort of process or potential on the radar? Been here since the 90s, bought my first piece of property from a farmer when the balloons used to land in our backyard. So the rural preservation of the town is something that I'm interested in. And just wanted to ask the question, is that something that's sort of on the radar? Is that a zoning board thing, a planning board thing?
I guess it could be either.
Well,
Depends on
the RUP zone, Fred, Matt, it's what, 6 acre?
RUP is 10 acres. So what is this specific question?
My specific question is, when you purchase a piece of property, if you're an LLC that's purchased a piece of property, out of town LLC, whatever, you have options, because there's different provisions under the RUPs. You can do the child care house, whatever we call it, and we'll refer to those regulations. You can also do the 1 acre. It says there's a 1 acre subdivision that has
There's no such thing as a 1 acre subdivision.
They can submit, no, I know that as far as that's what's in the statute.
Is she talking about farmland assessment?
I think it's farm.
All right, so what happens? RUP is 10 acre zone. You're allowed multiple different uses in that zone. Okay, you're allowed single family, you're allowed family care. There's a couple things, it's all in the ordinance, okay? It's a 10 acre zone, okay? Meaning that if you don't have 10 acres, you have to go, and you're doing a use that's permitted, you have to go to the planning board for approval, okay? It's a 10 acre zone. So I'm an LLC and I buy an RUP property, okay, and it's 10 acres. I can not subdivide it into 10 1 acre lots without getting most likely a density variance from the zoning board, okay, which is almost impossible to get, okay? The 1 acre is more of, I own a 10 acre farm. But I have a house on it because I live there. And I want to be farmland assessed. Meaning my taxes on my farm area are going to be less than your regular taxes assessments on your house, okay? But, so what the town does, they carve out on the 10-acre parcel, kind of 1 acre that's your house, an invisible line of 1 acre. They take that 1 acre, they assess that 1 acre, the full value of what it is for tax purposes. The other 9 acres will be assessed as it's a farm. That doesn't mean it creates 2 lots, it's still 1 lot. The invisible line is solely for tax purposes. When you want to be a farm, you become farmland assessed, which there's certain requirements for that.
Right,
But that's all that means. There is no, we don't have a provision that you could just cut it up to 1 acre. It's, the 1 acre is only dealing with tax issues.
One last question. Can a school be built?
I don't know, is it permitted use? Potentially.
That's what I mean.
Public buildings is one.
I believe it's conditional use.
So they could submit for that, but it'd have to go
The
through.
different requirements, yeah.
Okay. So it's potential, but it's not, it would have to go through layers.
What kind of school would you be
I-
suggesting?
It's not for me. It's just
Oh, that's a
something that was
common
brought.
problem.
No, it's sort of, could be a daycare, because there's been a big push from the Board of Ed. Of course, they did have to, now it was mandatory, the kindergarten, but there was a lot of discussion about the low-income preschool program, which is for underserved population, which is not really, part of Millstone's current, I mean, maybe down the line when they get the affordable housing in, whatever, but there seemed to be discussion, and that's in the record at the Board of Ed meetings, that was gonna be something that they were gonna apply for. So these are just things that I'm thinking of, longtime resident, and just wondering if these are things that are reviewed at the zoning level, and they would have to go through, I guess.
Everything gets reviewed by the zoning department for compliance. If it's a permitted use, it goes to the planning board.
planning board.
If it's a non-permitted use, or a height variance, density variance, it comes to the zoning board. It also becomes the zoning board if it's a single-family house and you're requiring variances. Like you want to build an addition, we do just the residential one-offs. Commercial would go to the planning board if it's permitted use. If I'm proposing a warehouse in the RUP zone, it'd come to the zoning board because it's a non-permitted use.
Okay, all right, so, and that would be in the minutes, if it gets to that point, if it's.
Well,
even-
then you would check, well, if you're within 200 feet of the property, they have to send a certified mail to you, and it would also be on our website and all our agendas, the application name, what they're proposing, the property address, and the zone. So if you check the planning board, zoning board, those agendas are up all the time. You can see what's appearing before the board, usually a month ahead of time.
All right, thank you, I appreciate the clarification.
She
problem.
has all the knowledge right there. That's the lady you want, Danielle.
Danielle.
She can help you what's coming.
Yeah,
she's fine.
I appreciate
But
it.
it's
No,
not-
I didn't know
it's
who
not a
she
chief.
was
She's the
contacting
go-to
for
girl.
questions.
Permitted, permitted.
Go-to girl, you
Yeah.
can't say that.
Yeah.
Stop by,
She's
see
just
the
the
zoning
go-to.
department.
Go-to person.
Thank you.
Get out, Karen. Yeah, get out.
I didn't even have a, thank you, now I have a name, I appreciate it,
No, thank you.
thank you, I'll remember that.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, so we will move on to our approval of minutes. So we have our May 28th, 2025 minutes.
Are there any comments or suggestions?
No, I actually just looked at them today. Waited to the last minute,
Okay, those short
but it was
What?
good. Yeah.
Is that the new term?
I'm good, so, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to make a motion to
I'll make a
approve?
motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Paya?
Yes.
Mr. Hannigan?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Landros?
Yes.
And Mr. Borghese?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, we'll move on to our next one from June 25th. Is that Borghese?
Oh, yes, that-
Borowski.
That's the
The solar
Borowski
panels.
approval, solar panel. That resolution came out last week. reviewed by our professionals. If there's no comments or changes, we need a motion and second from more or less.
We did skip a minute.
Yes,
But
the June minutes.
the 2 minutes, but if we are going to go to the resolution first, number 12, I added and highlighted on the copies that are in front of the board. It was just a clarification of the setback. It was a minor clarification, I just kind of highlighted it.
Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
the change I mentioned that's been reviewed and approved by our professional.
On it.
All right, so you want to
So it's motion to accept the revision as per our board secretary.
We'll do the resolution first, then the minutes, or we can do both?
We can do the resolutions that James already said.
Okay. So, resolution. Anybody want to make, any questions, comments, concerns? Motion to approve?
This is for the solar, right? Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Chairman Austin.
Yes.
Mr. Cadigan.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Lambros.
Yes.
Thank you, motion approved, 4-0.
Okay. So we got to go back to the minutes now?
Yep.
June 25th.
Okay. Same goes for the June 25th minutes.
No questions.
No, we're good. Andy, you-
I'll make a motion to approve.
thanks.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Chairman Austin.
Yes.
Mr. Cadigan.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Lambros.
Yes.
Motion approved, 4-0.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, we're moving right along to our applicant for tonight, Outfront Media, which is continuation, right?
Okay, for the record, this is the Outfront Media application. This application is carried from the last meeting without further notice. It is noticed Mr. Borghese, our alternate one, who was not here for the first meeting, has listened to the tapes and watched the audio, and he is certified that he's watched all the previous hearings, which only consisted of one, so he's able to vote on this application. This application was carried without further notice. So council, please re-enter your appearance, and you may proceed with your application.
Sure. Edward Purcell, Price, Meese, Schulman, and D'Arminio, here on behalf of Outfront Media. And thank you, Counselor, for doing that housekeeping. That was item number 1 on my list.
Check it off.
So I just thought I'd give a little bit of a refresher at the top of the meeting, just so everyone, it's fresh in your mind what we're proposing with respect to this application. And I just have a couple announcements with respect to the application too. So Outfront's requesting to modernize an existing static billboard. That's at Block 23.02, Lot 2.04. That's a parcel adjacent to Route 33. And basically, what's happening is Outfront's proposing to replace an existing double-faced static billboard with a double-faced LED billboard. And that has lots of benefits, and we sort of talked about that at the last meeting, but I kind of want to summarize that for the board now. So the sign is going to be smaller. Each face of the sign will be 211.65 square feet smaller. So the total billboard that we're proposing is going to be 423.3 square feet less in size than the existing billboard. There's also improvements with respect to the aesthetics of the sign. So we're going from a sign that currently has 7 support columns to a monopole, or if the board wants to, a stone apron. We're removing invasive species in the area and just generally cleaning up the surrounding area around the modernized billboard and replacing it with native species. So we submitted photo simulations at the last hearing, which I think are really stark on that point. You know, what's being proposed looks a lot better than what exists there now. In addition to all of that, all those benefits, Outfront is offering to provide the township with use of that digital billboard on a non-emergent basis, but guaranteed time. So 6.25% mandatory time of the daily use of the billboard, and also to provide the township use of the billboard on an emergent basis. And we submitted some protocols to the board that kind of explained specifically, what that offer entails. What the digital billboard also does is that it makes it less expensive for local businesses to advertise. If you remember at the last hearing, there was some discussion about how a static billboard is sort of like a pizza, right? You have one advertisement, one copy that's there for quite a long time. It's quite expensive to advertise comparatively to a digital sign where that pizza gets broken up into 8-second slices of advertising. So whereas, a business may not be able to afford that whole pie, they can afford an 8-second slice of advertising. So again, there's a lot of benefits that come with what we're proposing here with respect to modernization. And that's why I want to just announce, something with respect to the application. Outfront is going to withdraw its appeal because at the end of the day, this application stands on its own 2 feet and has a lot of good points to it. And I think, while it was an interesting discussion we were having at the last hearing, I feel like, and I think Outfront feels like it kind of was taking away from the merits of the application, which again are substantial, really quite substantial. So we're going to continue to request the relief that we had requested initially, though. So site plan approval. With respect to the use variances, we believe that at most a D2 use variance should be required. The intent here is to continue using the billboard. Having said that, we're also going to put on proofs for a D1 use variance, and we'll also put on proofs for the setback variances that were called out by the township. So that's a 100-foot front yard setback and a 15-foot sign setback. So I think there's enough kind of here with respect to the benefits that we're proposing to grant those requests. But, Outfront is offering to actually go even beyond that. So all those benefits that I just listed, which again are substantial, Outfront is going to even add to that. So what Outfront will agree to as a condition of the approval, that it will stipulate to remove 4 other sign faces from the township along Route 33. And I have an exhibit here that has an explanation of which sign faces would be removed. So that's marked as Exhibit A22.
I don't think we have, I know the board hasn't seen it. You have copies for the board because I think we're
Right.
technologically.
This is new, right?
Yes,
It is
we have not seen this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, let me get a copy. Let's get the board a copy and give me a copy so I can mark it. We'll mark as A20. I need one more so I can use that. Thanks. Okay, now I got your copy. A22
I know, I saw it.
is 3-page exhibit RE removal of signs.
So I'll just go over this, just walk the board through it. The first page kind of lists the signs out by way of their DOT permit, their out front ID number, their size, and their square footage. So these are 4 sign faces. There's 2 sign structures, so 2 double-faced sign structures that are being proposed to be taken down, but 4 sign faces. Each sign face is 10.7 feet by 23 feet for a total square footage of 247.25 square feet. So in total, we're proposing, as a condition of approval, to take down 989 square feet. The second page of the exhibit shows the aerial that Mr. Voigt provided in his testimony as A11. So these signs are called out. You'll see the subject area. The subject sign is located on the northern side of Route 33 to the left, and then 1,200 feet to the east of that sign is the first proposed structure that we're going to take down. Again, that's a double-faced sign. So if you look, there's, two arrows heading, pointing to that site. Each is a picture of a face of that structure. And then the next proposed structure that's proposed to be taken down is 500 feet to the east beyond that. And again, this calls out a picture of each one of those sign faces. And then on the third page, we have a larger picture of each of the sign faces that's being proposed to be removed. So you may be familiar with them as you drive down Route 33. So kind of to put this in a nutshell, so we're making the subject sign smaller than it exists now by 423.3 square feet. And on top of that, in addition to that, Outfront is also proposing to remove 989 square feet of additional outdoor advertising in the township. So that's a total of 1,412 total square feet of signage. That's quite a bit of signage. Quite a bit.
What is, when you say take down, okay? Are you just removing the face, taking down the structure, and what's stopping those 4 property owners, or maybe there's less?
The two signs on both sides.
Yeah, 2 structures.
So it's 2 property owners. So what is going to prohibit those property owners from putting up new signs with a
Well,
different company?
The signs being, Outfront owns the sign structure, and the sign structure is being entirely
Right,
demolished.
they come back, tear them down, and then they say, we want new static signs up because Outfront Media left, tore it down, we're putting up new ones.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of goes into what we've been talking about with respect to intent. So Outfront is the operator of these signs. The intent is to remove them. Right now, they are non-conforming uses in the zone. So they would be removed. And the intent is, and we're saying here to you right now, as the operator, is that the use not be continued. So the pre-existing non-conforming use would be extinguished.
In order to get the benefit of that, I think you're going to have to get the owner to stipulate that there's an abandonment of that use on his property.
Well, I think or a deed restriction. Because it comes down to the point, I understand your point, is you're saying, hey, we're doing what we can do as the applicant. We own the signs, we're gonna tear them down. We can't control, I assume, what the property owners are, because you're not the property owners, right? You probably have nothing, and you're just doing what you can. Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, we have leases with those property owners, and under those leases, we have the right to remove those signs.
Right.
And, to the extent that the lease needs to be purchased or bought out, that's something that we would do. The other thing I'll say is that, Outfront is the holder of the permit. So when we remove these signs and extinguish the non-conforming use, the DOT permit is also extinguished or removed. So we're, on various different levels.
When is the lease up on both of those properties?
I do not know the answer to that question. Ron, do you know the answer to that question?
I think we're like a year to year. It's self-renewing year to year.
And then couldn't Greg Vela Sign Company then go back to the DOT and say, these people have vacated the area, I want a sign license, and then go to the board?
Well, I guess the applicant, the property owner, could go to the DOT to request a permit. At the end of the day, they would have to get a D1 use variance from this board.
Right. They would need a D1 use variance and say, hey, we just want to put a static sign up, we need a use variance. Here's the resolution, you approved the digital one 1,000 feet away. What's the difference? We have less impact because we're digital, so give us our use variance because you already approved the other one.
Our lessee walked away and took down the structure. We never had an intent to abandon it. They left us.
Well, the abandonment, yeah.
I mean, Mr. Vela, any property owner along, Route 33 has the right to go to the DOT to the extent that they're not within they're not crowded out or spaced out by an existing structure.
Right.
So I mean, I guess my point is to say is that, you know, anyone has the ability to do that. Anyone has the ability to request this board for a D1 use variance. You know, as you're aware, every application stands on its 2 feet, and there's no such thing as a precedent here. Every application, I can't point to a separate application and say that's, you know, you gave a D1 use variance to that applicant, so I'm entitled to one. That's not the way D1 use variances work.
But it's heard me say that speech before.
Right, well, I think I've given that speech too when someone said what you said.
But I guess the real question, and then we can move on from it, is, and I think I'm correct, I think you've already testified, or your clients have testified, the fact that you have a digital DEP license for your location only prohibits other digital signs with a certain amount of linear footage up and down the road, correct? Which
To 3,000 feet.
3,000 feet.
Foot rule. I had a question on that as well.
It doesn't stop, the digital license doesn't stop static license within that 3,000 feet either side.
300 feet is the distance requirement for static.
So it's, you have 300 on each side for static,
Correct.
because you have a digital. Okay.
If I could
What
just-
about, so if you're not, if the DOT is not permitting a digital sign within 3,000 feet of another digital sign, does that mean both sides of the road, or does it mean only one side?
It means on the one side of the
One
road.
Right.
So to follow up on that question, is a 3,000-foot rule apply just only to Outfront Media, or can, let's say, Lamar or Clear Channel?
It applies to
or-
all applicants.
So it's only one digital billboard within 3,000
Correct.
feet? No other,
Correct.
no other, not to say carriers, but companies
And
can
then
print?
how far away from an intersection does it have to be?
It's 500.
Maybe we're getting to a point.
500 feet?
Hold on, time out. Maybe we're getting to a point that we're asking the lawyer too many questions.
Yeah.
And then have your professional come back,
Yeah.
re-sworn and potentially answer it.
Yeah, that, I think we're getting into an area that, Ron, do you want to?
Yeah, you want me to?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
talk here.
yeah.
I think there's questions here about the.
Because next thing you know,
I can't off the top of my head.
I'm swearing you in, counsel. Sir, please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the following testimony about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name for the record, please.
Ron Tortello, Tourtellout.
Yes, Mr. Tello, you previously been sworn, you're reminded you're still
Yes,
under oath, so you can take a seat. If you want to grab the mic with you too, that'd be great, sir.
Okay, how's that? Is it on?
I don't know.
Well, maybe I'll just share that one. How's that? Is that working?
Hold on, Daniel's checking.
Yeah, just slide that one over.
Okay. I can answer that question about the, how far from the intersection. On a roadway like Route 33, the state DOT does not regulate any like ramp spacing or intersections. So there is none. If it was a limited access highway, then there's a 500-foot rule about spacing. But since this is a non-limited access highway, there is no such spacing.
So you could put it right on the intersection, right next to car.
You could place it, they don't look at that as part of the criteria for citing these on a non-limited access highway. And as previously stated, there's 300 feet between static signs along the same side of the road and 3,000 feet spacing from both sides of this sign. No other digital sign could be located.
So, you know, what Outfront is proposing is that right now, you know, there's 989 square feet of outdoor advertising that exists right now. That's a pre-existing non-conforming use that Outfront has the right to operate as a zoning matter, you know, for as long as its lease exists, right, as a pre-existing non-conforming use. What Outfront is proposing is to remove those signs as a condition of approval. So, you know, if the goal is to lessen the amount of outdoor advertising in the township, which I would think that as a non-conforming use is certainly a policy goal, this certainly would bring the township a far way into, you know, reaching that goal.
It depends on how you classify it. Right now, you have you have three signs, three double-faced signs that stand 24 hours a day, right? But then you're proposing to remove two of the double-faced signs, and have a double-faced sign that changes every 8 seconds, 24/7, 365. So it's fair to say that there's significantly more advertising going on the digital billboard than there is on the stagnants, in the form of messaging, like not even close.
Well, by way of impact, you raise a good point with respect to the lighting. These signs, I didn't mention that, these, signs that are being proposed to be taken down, these 4 signs, they are, lit 24/7. They are visible at night. As was discussed by Mr. Voigt, the lighting for these type of static signs is not controlled, whereas the lighting for the digital sign that we're proposing is controlled. So when it gets darker at night, the sign gets less bright, much less bright. So it's less impactful, has less, shines less off-site. Whereas these signs that exist, that currently operate and that we have every right to operate in the future, don't have the benefit of that technology, are less impactful in that way, and we are proposing to remove them.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we could then start with your next witness?
Sure.
Can I ask a quick question? What's the distance from this sign to both sides of the town? I'm just wondering,
Could you get another
will
one?
there be another one or 2 more on that side?
Digital sign, the digital
Yeah.
sign?
Yeah, I think
We
we
said
looked at that,
3,000
and
feet,
I
right?
think the town line ends, but I'm not
So, I
100% sure,
could
but
tell-
I think we looked at that in the town. It would be
So-
outside of the township of Millstone, I believe. But maybe we could do some work with the engineer just to look at that really quick.
Right, so here's what I did. I drove my car from Sweetman's in Millstone all the way to the Turnpike, okay? And then all the way from the Turnpike, all the way to Neptune along Route 33, okay? So here's what I found. No digital billboards between between the Turnpike and Neptune until you hit Kelly's Tavern and the marina in Avon, where the bridge goes over the Shark River. There's 2 digital billboards. Coincidentally, Outfront Media operates every billboard except the one on Kelly's Tavern. I think they own that. Okay, it's called Billy Boards, but your company name is on every billboard along that road. So between Sweetman Millhurst, okay, along Manalapan, there's 5 sign structures within 2.8 miles, okay? So that's basically a sign every half a mile. Millstone has 4 sign structures within the entire 2-mile stretch of Millstone. There's 2 miles, okay? Between Woodward and Prodlin Way, 2 miles. Okay? And then East Windsor has 2 sign structures within 2.9 miles. That's the distance between Prodlin Way and the Turnpike, okay? That's 1.45 miles, signs per mile. But oddly, interestingly, in the Millstone section, out of the 4 sign positions, they're all within a 1,000-foot stretch of the 2-mile long highway in Millstone. So I don't know how that happened or why that happened, but they're all there. So Millstone has by far a higher concentration of signs than East Windsor and Manalapan.
And what
And
we're proposing to do is
they're all out front media
Right, and
signs.
what we're proposing to do is to lessen that concentration by removing
Okay.
2 structures and 4 sign faces.
Where's the 4th sign?
So there's 2 on the westbound side and 2 on the northbound side, eastbound side. And they're all right in that area.
So,
Or
Just
there might be
wanted to-
3 on the westbound side and 1 on the eastbound side.
So if there's anything else on this, we would like to get our planner to provide some testimony. One thing I'll just say before George Williams comes up, after we're done with Mr. Williams' testimony, one thing we talked about last time was that the board kind of has an option. Does it prefer that the pole be visible below the sign, that it be a monopole? Does the board prefer that it have that apron that has kind of a monument-style view to it, to look like it's kind of a faux stone structure? I just want to call that out now because I do want to have that discussion with the board on aesthetically.
Right, we can discuss that after the planner.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the following testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I most certainly do.
Please state your name for the record, spell your last name, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is George Weedle Williams. Williams spelled with an S, W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S.
You can say, sir. I think the microphone was working before, so not that you don't need it.
I don't know if it is.
George, could you just go over your education, professional licensure, and experience?
Certainly, I'm licensed by the State Board of Professional Planners, nationally certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. I completed my graduate studies at the Rutgers Graduate School, now known as the Blaustein School, just to date myself a little bit. I've been practicing in the field of planning for a little over 30 years with a primary focus on land use, of course, but also economic and community development planning. And my firm works in a variety of planning specialities, including the development of master plans, zoning ordinances, redevelopment plans, now planning for sustainability and civic engagement. I have also represent land use boards, currently representing the Hoboken, Bloomfield, and I just drew a blank on another one. Land use boards, and my firm represents boards in Newark, Orange, and Plainville. I've appeared before numerous land use boards throughout the state of New Jersey, but this is my first time before this august board.
Mr. Chairman.
We are
would you
good,
accept
Mr. Williams.
as a planner?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that, and, you know, you got a very extensive background.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we accept your qualifications.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
So, Mr. Williams, could you just tell the board what work you've completed in the preparation of your testimony?
Certainly. I approached this application the way I approach every land use application that begins with a review of the local land use documents, in this case your 2017 master plan and your land development ordinance, all that in the context of the municipal land use law, of course. I've also reviewed the site plan and site plan application that are before you this evening with their attachments, and I and my staff, along with a team for OFM Outfront Media, have visited the site on more than one occasion. I also reviewed some of the case law and planning literature in support of the release that we are seeking this evening, and I attended the previous hearing. And additionally, I did review the board professional review memos that were submitted. I think there's also one municipal department memo that I reviewed as well.
Could you just give us your planning overview of the subject application for the proposed modernization?
Certainly, you can see me flipping pages. I'm going to refer to my notes. I was asked to be as brief or succinct as possible, and the outline helps me do that. You've heard of considerable amount of testimony from the other members of our team already. I will do my best in the spirit of being succinct, not to be too redundant, although I will repeat a few foundational statements for the record, then give you a broad planning overview, assessment, or analysis, and then get to the statutorily required requisite proofs for the release we're seeking.
George, before you talk about the property description, I just want to clarify this map was submitted to the board and previously marked as Exhibit A 2021. This planning exhibit, your office prepared this?
That is correct.
It shows just the subject zone and the surrounding area that's over an aerial. Is that correct?
That is also correct.
Okay. Thank you. You can continue.
Certainly. And the purpose of that exhibit was merely to show this board what they already know. You're as familiar with the site, if not more, than I, but just to give you context for the remainder of my testimony about the orientation of the sign, location of the sign, and I'll talk to you a bit more about the OFM approach to site selection in a few moments.
we're going to hand this out just because we can't look at it on the screen.
Sorry. Good job, council. 'Cause I was going to ask you to put it up or something. And it's already been marked.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. And this was
What's all the
821.
wires?
Thank you.
It's a trap.
Okay, you can proceed.
Certainly. So in terms of the foundational statements, again, this is property that we commonly refer to as the Route 33 site, but as council mentioned, as did our engineer, in your municipal tax records, it's identified as block 23.02, lot number 2.04, and it is in your planned commercial development zone, or PCD. The site is approximately 0.37 acres, as testified by Mr. Vogt, our civil engineer, and it is developed with the aforementioned static signs that we seek to modernize. Again, the project description, I won't belabor this, is to modernize the static signs using the contemporary format, which is the LED display system with a monopole and/or, if this board so desires, the apron, which makes it even more aesthetically pleasing. As was mentioned by both council and our civil engineer, the proposed modernization has a number of benefits, which I'll get into in a few moments, but it also includes a slight reduction in sign area of the existing signs on the site. According to your section 35-5-15 of the code, the purpose of the PCD is to promote the use of larger tracts of unified, well-planned and designed commercial development. The PCD will better control highway access, maintain the free flow of traffic along Route 33, and discourage the fragmentation of highway frontage into highway strip or uncoordinated development of small lots. You'll hear me repeat this, that the purpose and intent of outdoor advertising is, in point of fact, to promote commerce, and I'll talk a bit more about that as well. As you've heard from council and previous witnesses, we are seeking a couple of reliefs. The D variance, and I'll go into that in further depth, is required because the proposed billboard is not among the permitted uses in the PCD. So we are going to talk, my planning testimony will discuss the toggling between the D2 and the D1. And as this board knows, the D2 is for the expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use, and the D1 is for a wholly new non-conforming use. But I think talking about them both in my testimony may be instructive. There are also two C variances, or bulk and area deviations, which were discussed by our civil engineer. One is the minimum front yard setback for a sign. The other is the minimum front yard setback for a principal structure. And there was some discussion between the applicant's engineer and your board engineer about that. You'll hear me testify that, in my professional opinion, the C variances may be subsumed if you were to grant either the D1 or D2 variance, but we're more than willing to provide proofs for the bulk and area deviations as well. There are also a number of pre-existing nonconformities, and as you heard from Mr. Vogt, our civil engineer, and I will opine now, that if you were to grant our proposed modernization, none of those pre-existing nonconformities would be exacerbated, and in that sense, particularly under the Cortesini court case, I would submit no additional relief is needed for those pre-existing nonconformities in terms of bulk and area. That being said, from a general planning perspective, a broad overview, this application is particularly interesting because of the fact that the sign, the static sign, has existed at this site for close to 70 years, I think, was testified by Mr. Vogt, through the use of historic aerials and by looking at the OFM documentation for those signs. There will be no changes to the setback for the proposed sign, as you heard Mr. Vogt discuss, and the dimensions of the proposed modernized billboard will be slightly smaller than the existing sign area that exists on the site now. Finally, this is particularly interesting because, as you just heard from our council, This is both a modernization and consolidation. That consolidation includes, as you just heard, the removal of 4 sign faces, each of which are also pre-existing non-conforming uses at their sites, but also their static signs. And you heard testimony from the applicant's representative about the benefit of digital over static, and hence the ability to remove those static faces. The removal of those static faces, as you've heard from council, also is important for the community. That 989 square feet of sign area by removing the nonconformities is a good planning suggestion.
Hey, George, and that 989, and that's in addition to the amount that's being reduced by way of the smaller sign,
That is correct.
So that's 423.3 square feet plus the 989.
That is
right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. Finally, I mentioned this in my introduction, we talked briefly about the OFM, or Outfront Media methodology for site selection. I have worked with Outfront Media for a number of years now, and can attest to their approach for all site selections. It begins with the permit run, as you've heard from both the applicant's representative as well as our civil engineer. And then when it's time for the modernization or new build, there's a considerable amount of effort that goes into making sure that the sign build and orientation is context sensitive. By context sensitive, I mean typically the team, including the civil engineer, sometimes other experts, myself, and representatives from OFM will go to the site, walk the site, drive the site, thoroughly photo journal to make sure that the views of the sign are oriented towards the primary audience, or the audience, which is vehicular traffic along these roadways. More importantly, that there's no negative visual impact on non-commercial areas by the sign location and orientation. Of course, there are other benefits, as you've heard from the previous witnesses. Digital billboards have the benefit of the public benefit package and the protocols that were discussed. Very briefly, that means the ability to advertise PSAs, or public service announcements, and community events. For this sign in particular, the community event space or municipal messaging space is particularly appealing because it could be seen as a gateway message center, especially if the apron is selected. It has a very aesthetic improvement to the area. In terms of the impact on the surrounding area, based on the due diligence or the methodology of OFM that I just mentioned, I would submit that, again, there has been a billboard at the site for almost 70 years, and the impact of the modernization would be to improve the site. First of all, the aesthetic of the monopole and/or apron, the slight reduction in the sign area, also the lessening of site visits because the copy is changed remotely, and most of the technology monitors most of the operation of the sign, such that changes and/or updates can be done remotely. With that, I will move to, and lastly, the literature supports what you heard Mr. Tortello say earlier, that the digital format also makes the billboards a bit more readable, legible, and conspicuous, which is a good thing for our target audience, which are vehicular traffic. We looked at the exhibit already. With that, I would move to the reliefs. As this board knows, there are 6 types of D variances at issue before you this evening, in my opinion, are either the D2, which is the expansion of a non-conforming use, and you heard testimony from Mr. Vogt about the existence of the sign at the site. You also heard testimony from our representative about the permits documenting the long-standing existence of the sign at the site. As this board knows, the D2 allows the board to dispose of the particular suitability requirement of the proofs, and gives this board the ability to look at the negative criteria with greater liberality. And this board knows the negative criteria is a 2-pronged test. The first prong is no substantial detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment to the zone plan. The D1, and there's a landmark court case for the D2, which I'll discuss in a moment. That's the Burbridge court case. Burbridge v. Mine Hill. The D1, however, very similar, although it is intended for wholly new land uses that are not among the enumerated permitted uses in the zone district, and does require a showing of particular suitability. So with that, for both variances, both D variances, D1 or D2, the board, as you know, has to balance the affirmative criteria or special reasons with the negative criteria. I've already discussed what the negative criteria, that two-prong test, is. The affirmative criteria is a showing that if you were to grant our relief, the purposes of zoning would be advanced, or the site is particularly suitable for the proposed use, if you were to, or the use is inherently beneficial, which we're not submitting for this application. And last but not least, if you were to deny our application, it would constitute an undue hardship. I'm going to begin with the D2 only because from a very practical sense, it's helpful given the tenure of the sign at the site, but I will end my testimony with the particular suitability requirement for the D1. According to the Burbridge court case, as I mentioned, Burbridge v. Mine Hill, special reasons can also be found when the site makes an aesthetic improvement. The proposed use can make an aesthetic improvement to the site and minimize the nonconformity. Moreover, Burbridge finds that you, the board, can impose reasonable conditions as part of your approval. The court noted that applications to expand lawfully created pre-existing nonconforming uses offer boards, the zoning boards, opportunities to impose conditions, frequently aesthetic, which will help integrate the use with its surroundings, and especially important consideration for uses which are thriving and therefore not likely to end soon.
George, and just quick for a second. So Burbridge, that was a junkyard, right?
Correct.
And then what happened is that there was an expansion of the junkyard, but in a way in which it helped alleviate the view of the junkyard from the public view.
Correct. There was
right?
a squaring off, and there was also landscaping that mitigated the view of that junkyard.
Was it also they moved the junkyard from the front of the property to the back of the property so you couldn't see the junkyard?
Correct.
Would that been the most aesthetic part of it, that you don't see the junkyard anymore?
That was certainly a significant part of it, yes.
Okay.
Justice Clifford, from that court case, issued a quote that I find myself using fairly frequently, and I quote, "When a lawfully created pre-existing non-conforming use cannot be eliminated, a municipality may and should seek to harmonize the use with its environs. To this end, the municipality ought to require aesthetic improvement as a condition of expansion, and municipalities' ability to insist on specific changes as part of the expansion safeguards general welfare." I'll just pause there to say the applicant in this application has already agreed to a couple of those harmonizations. One would be the removal of the invasive species at the site, the proposed apron if the board chooses to go that way, as well as I think there was another condition of the consolidation as well.
But even just removing those 7 metal support poles and replacing them with a monopole?
Yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, obviously, but I would argue that having done this for a number of years, the monopole, a much sleeker, sturdier mounting source, is much more aesthetically pleasing than the rusted steel supports that are there currently. And if you go way back, the wooden lattice supports, part of the modernization. In terms of the special reasons, again, 40:55D-2 are the purposes of zoning under the municipal land use law. I'm going to begin with subsection A. It's a bit of a catch-all because it's the first, but I would submit that it's appropriate in this application. And it is, I quote, "to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare." In the case of modernized digital format billboards, that is achieved through the public benefits package and the protocols that were mentioned by the applicant earlier. Specifically, the general welfare is enhanced by the ability to communicate remotely and facilely information that benefits the public, not just the applicant. Subsection G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses, and open space, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements, in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. In terms of this land use, the appropriate environment, and I'll cite a state statute in a moment, is proximity to major roadways. Again, the target audience is our vehicular traffic, and the proximity or adjacency to Route 33 certainly achieves that and has achieved that for this applicant for decades. Finally, before I get into the state statute, subsection I, to promote a desirable visual environment through good civic design. The focus is typically on the aesthetic, but I would submit to this board the civic design about which you heard testimony from Mr. Vogt is also part of the advancement of subsection I. The visual environment, I would argue, is part of the modernization given the monopole, but more importantly, the opportunity for this board to perhaps select the more ornate apron that's been discussed earlier and the removal of the steel structure. Finally, there's a court case, Anfuso v. Sealy, which suggests that if a state policy is advanced, that can be accepted by the board as a special reason. And I would submit that the New Jersey Roadside Sign Control and Outdoor Advertising Act would be advanced if you were to grant our modernization and consolidation proposal. That act finds to balance, its intent is to balance the need to control and regulate roadside signs and outdoor advertising, address technological advancements of the outdoor advertising industry, provide for safety and convenience of the public, and the need to stimulate economic commercial activity within a state. In my professional opinion, again, having worked with Outfront Media for a number of years and reviewed the planning literature about outdoor advertising signs, certainly the modernization is about technological advancement, but also to promote commerce throughout the state. Outfront does a market analysis for most of their sites, and typically it's a 70-30% split. 70% of the advertisements that are leased or purchased are local, and the other 30% are ultra-local, regional, and or national. In terms of the negative criteria, the greater liberality clause applies under the D2, and that suggests that the board can look at the negative criteria again with greater liberality because the sign has existed or the use has existed at this location for a number of years as opposed to being a brand new use. The first prong, as I mentioned earlier, is no substantial detriment to the public good. That word substantial comes directly from the municipal land use law, and I would submit that based on our review of this application, review of the sites, and coordination with the other members of the team, there would certainly be no substantial detriment to the public good. In point of fact, in my opinion, if you were to approve our modernization and consolidation proposal, there would be improvements to the site and therefore the surrounding area. Again, most importantly, the aesthetic, but also the technology that channels or controls the lighting in a way that is far better than the older format of static lighting, which is not controlled the way the LED is. Second prong, no substantial impairment to the zone plan. That's your master plan and or zoning ordinance. There was not a lot of reference to billboards specifically in your master plan, but the master plan does include a number of discussions about the need to promote commerce in Millstone. And again, that is the intent and purpose of outdoor advertising, is to promote commerce. And as you heard me say a moment ago, according to OFM, that split in terms of advertisements is roughly 70-30. So that's a significant promotion of local advertisements. In the planned commercial development, or PCD, there is a nod to encourage larger lots, overall site planning and design, and larger commercial uses, larger scale retail rather. Again, the LED or digital format allows the applicant to promote that type of retail development in Millstone. In terms of the D1,
Mr.
that-
Williams,
yes.
before you go to D1, just a little different. Question on the detail. I know you reviewed the plans, and you know that the applicant is completely demolishing the existing structure. Could you explain, in your opinion, that a D2 still applies if the entire non-conforming structure is completely voluntarily removed from the site? Because once you remove it, it's not there anymore, so how are you really expanding when it's all gone?
It is a conundrum of billboard modernizations, and I take your point, which is why we typically offer proofs for D2 and D1. The D2 is just because it makes sense legally. However, it is always a bone of contention because the structure is removed. I will tell you that there are engineering ways to construct the monopole and keep part of the structure, the steel structure, up while that's occurring. But I don't want to be disingenuous. The point is that the sign's been there 70 years. The only way to modernize it effectively is to add the monopole.
Can you speak to the purpose or the effect of the intent?
Certainly, and that is part and parcel of the D2. There's no abandonment of the intent to use that site for the billboard. Clearly, OFM and the DOT permit understand that this is a modernization and that the intent is to continue the use. But again, we're very comfortable proving under D1 or D2.
But wouldn't that be the same if I had a old commercial building in a residential zone, and I said, hey, I want to build a more modern commercial building on the property rather than a commercial building that's been here from 1920. I want to build a brand new commercial building that includes drywall, insulation, up-to-date cat wiring, roofing, drainage, and the like. Is that an expansion when I have no intent to get rid of the commercial, but I'm demoing the entire building and I'm modernizing by building a new commercial building in the residential zone? Would that be, in your opinion, still a D2 variance? I didn't intend to get rid of the commercial. I'm just quote unquote modernizing by ripping it all down and going new. And how does that play with the pure intent of zoning is to move to conformity? So when you tear things down, that your zone says, hey, let's move to where it is what is permitted. How do you balance those things?
All very good questions. And again, it's the conundrum of billboard modernizations. For your hypothetical, for example, and again, I'm not debating you, 'cause this is what we go through every time with billboards. There are more often than not standards in local zoning codes that specify the amount of destruction or demolition that lose that.
Usually it's like 50%.
Correct. There's no such thing for billboards that I'm aware of, and I've done a lot of research. And again, it is counterintuitive, in my opinion, to dispense of the D2 argument, but understanding the law and the predilections of boards, that's why I always do the D1 as well.
Fred, do you have anything to add
It's a
on that?
D1. It's a D1. It represents a modernization of the site, but not the structure and the use. I think it's a D1 in terms of it, especially when it's completely gone. Doesn't mean the site isn't suited to the use. It might be very well suited to the use, but in terms of an alteration or expansion of an existing use, the structure is gone, even if it's for a second, and then it's rebuilt. It doesn't necessarily represent a fatal argument or a major liability, but it's gone.
And I would agree with your board, well, I understand your board planner's point. Again, that's why we do both the D2 and D1. Unfortunately, there's almost no way to modernize it without the swapping out. I would also agree with your board planner that it's not a fatal point of distinction. Here's why I always do both, however. You're going to hear me discuss particular suitability in a moment, based largely in part on the existence of the billboard at the site for 70 years, which suggests its suitability. That being said, again, if I had to wrap up the testimony for both D1 and D2, the only missing part for the D1 proofs under the special reasons would be the particular suitability your board planner just mentioned.
And I agree with you, Mr. Ridley. The fatality of your D1 does rise or fall on your proofs for the D2.
Right. And in fact, they are going to be almost exactly the same except for particular suitability. From a professional planning perspective and analysis, I would submit to this board that this site is particularly suited for the proposed use, which will be the modern LED format digital billboard, because of its proximity to Route 33, and more importantly, that it's in a non-residential district, and lastly, that there are no conflicting land uses in the immediate vicinity. That meaning that this billboard, if you were to approve it, has all the benefits I mentioned under the D2, and is particularly suited for this site for the reasons I've just mentioned and for the reasons you've heard from our civil engineer. The negative criteria would be the same for both, in my professional opinion. In terms of the C variance, or the bulk,
Before we get to that, let's finish the D1.
Yeah.
Question, you want to ask?
Yeah. I just have one question, George. Bill Voigt testified that with respect to this site, because it's in a floodplain, the DEP issued a permit to reconstruct the sign to modernize it because it pre-existed. But and they did that because it pre-exists. Those regulations is there. It's grandfathered. That nothing new can be, nothing else can be done with the property essentially because of that environmental issue. Does that impact at all, or have any impact on your analysis or discussion?
Yes, I mean particularly suitable for this use because it's practically the only use that could be built on the site, given the land constraints that our civil engineer testified to earlier.
Could you've already admitted 822, which is two different static billboards. Could you explain why those sites, are those sites any different than your proposed site regarding particular suitability? Because they're both on Route 33, and I believe they're in a non-residential zone, but don't hold me to that. Is there any difference between those sites that you have billboard signs as compared to the subject site? Is there any difference for that other than there's a permit for one, not for the other? And then the question becomes did you apply, could they've all, and hypothetically, would the DEP approve it, DOT approve it for a different site if it wasn't applied for this one? So if you explain why, other than the DOT permit, which is not a particular suitability point, it's just a permit, what are those two different than the subject site? Because they both have signs, they're both on Route 33, and I believe they're not in a residential zone. But don't hold me to that, because I'm not sure.
They're probably not in wetlands either.
Well, no. So is there anything particularly different about this site as compared to the other two sites that already have signs, or any of the properties along Route 33 within the township of Millstone? That you could you could say it's particularly suited, it's close to Route 33, non-residential zone. Other than those two factors, is there any difference, and why makes it this different than other than the permit?
Let me try and answer that a couple ways. As you know, the case law does not require us to show that there are no other suitable sites for the proposed use. I would submit that while I'm about to take a stab at answering your question, it's more of an operational question for the representative of OFM. I can tell you from my collaboration with the team that one of the indices that made this site particularly suitable was its gateway appeal, and you've heard, I think, a couple of the witnesses talk about how this sign is located in such a way as it can provide gateway messages to Millstone. So it's the permit, the analysis that OFM goes through for site selection, and the identification of this site as having the most benefit in terms of reaching its audience.
Well, explain that. what's the difference? Like, the other sign, the first sign, how many square feet or linear feet is it from your proposed?
Is that the 1,200?
One's 1,200, one's
Yeah.
500 beyond that.
Okay.
So one's 1,200, is your testimony that 1,200 feet down Route 33 creates a different, what's the term I'm looking for? A different customer base? 1,200 feet down a relatively straight road as compared to the site?
No, I think my testimony is that the OFM site selection is based on a number of factors, that this one had the most appeal, and I don't think we can discount the permit, but that it was suitable primarily because of its adjacency to Route 33. Does that negate the appropriateness of the other sites? No, but again, in terms of market analysis, which is a little bit different than particular suitability, that would be a question for OFM to answer.
I ask a
George,
question?
yeah, sure.
Is it because the leases on the other ones are going to expire next year versus this one might be a much longer term lease, so it makes more sense to invest in it?
That's one of the operational indices I was referring to that I would not know, but the OFM representative would. I mean, I heard mentioned moments ago that they're a self-renewing annual. I don't know if they differ from this lease arrangement, but you asked a good question.
George, with respect to the particular suitability, this sign is located to the east of the other properties, or the other signs, is that correct?
That is correct.
And the border, the township border is farther to the east than here, is that correct? That subject property?
That's also correct.
Okay. So that means that anyone that is entering the township on Route 33, coming the opposite direction, towards the sign. So I guess we're westbound, so they would be going eastbound,
Right.
right? Maybe I think I have it reversed. I think we're far to the west, right? We're far to the
Correct.
west.
I'm sorry, you are.
Yeah. So we're far to the west, so anyone coming on the opposite side, coming eastbound, this would be the first sign that they would see entering into the township, correct?
Correct,
And
coming
that-
from Monroe.
Right, and that's what you mean, gateway,
That is correct.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why the other signs, aren't gateway signs, because this is the first sign.
That's correct.
Is that what you meant?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think generally a gateway sign means an entrance to something, an entrance to the town, an entrance into a major commercial area.
I could also look at it
This
now
is
since-
just the first available sign.
Well, true, but also then, since we're on the western part, it's also an exit sign, right? So once
Thanks
you
for coming, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming to Millstone, we'll see you. You already been through the town, because you've already went.
I guess
essentially
in both ways, because it's
Yeah.
a double-faced sign. So
Correct,
is
and
that
we
correct,
see
George?
protocols or renderings that OFM has showed here in other municipalities will say, thank you for shopping in Millstone, for example.
But you're not testifying that the sign is solely intended for Millstone businesses, correct?
No, in point of fact, Council, my testimony was a bit different. I think I mentioned a 70-30 split between local and non-local ads.
So what's your definition of local?
I'll defer to OFM on that, but my understanding is that it's Millstone specifically, and then there's a concentric circle that gets drawn as it goes further and further out.
Because 70% of the ads, if it's local in Millstone, you're talking 2.7 million ads per year sold to Millstone businesses. A year,
I'll trust your math.
Refresh rate.
right?
Yeah,
Based on the refresh rate of one every 8
8
seconds.
seconds.
Wouldn't Millstone be the hyper-local that you referred to? That, within that 30%?
So I
There was
have a
local,
question, but
regional, and then there was hyper-local, regional, and national.
I think we need Rob back.
Rob, you're still under oath, please.
I'm not the sales representative, but basically what we're talking about is, we have other signs as mentioned, like an Avon, things like that. So local, we have a network of signage, so local advertisers could be on even from Avon by the Sea, say for restaurants or marinas there, Millstone promoting that. and maybe Avon by the Sea is promoting something in Millstone, so they all work together. So if their offices are in Millstone is one, and if they're in the general area of Millstone, local car dealerships, things like that, that's all local advertising. It's not a national brand. That's roughly 30%. And as far as like the slices of advertising, I don't think it's all those, because a client will buy a month's worth of those 8-second spots. So not every single one is an individual advertiser. It's one client for one slice, if that helps clarify anything.
And then, George, with respect to your testimony, the township also has the use of the sign. Is that correct? And certainly, with respect to the location of the gateway, is that an important factor?
Correct. And so in the public benefit package, we talked about the terms that the municipality could utilize to advertise events and activities within the municipality, or to do things like a welcome message as you enter or pass by the sign. So those are the positive and the negative criteria for the D variances. As I mentioned in my introductory comments, there are also 2 bulk and area deviations. The minimum front yard setback for the sign requirement is, minimum required is 15 feet, existing is 3.25 feet, and proposed is 3.25. As testified by Mr. Vogt and indicated on his site plans, there's also a call out for the minimum front yard setback, looking at the sign as a principal structure. Required setback is a minimum of 100 feet for the principal structure. Existing is 3.25, and what's proposed is 3.25. Given the intent and purpose of those 2 bulk and area standards, I'm going to submit that this is most cognizable under the C2 context. As this board knows, there are 2 contexts: a C1, or traditional hardship variance, which seeks to show unique topography, shape, size, or structures lawfully thereon for the hardship, and a C2, which allows the board to consider if on the whole what's being proposed is a better zoning alternative than a strict application of your code. In my opinion, the C2 is perhaps most appropriate, although there are elements of the C1 in our application. The C2 also allows you to look at the characteristics of the land that present an opportunity for improved zoning, and the plan it will benefit the community. For all those reasons, I'm going to submit that the C2 is appropriate. As this board knows, for the granting of the C2, the purposes of zoning have to be demonstrated. Same sort of negative criteria analysis, and again, the better zoning alternative. From my professional planning perspective, the purposes of zoning that would be advanced if you were to grant the C2 release would be very similar to those of the D variance. Certainly the good civic design, as testified to by Mr. Vogt, allowing a deviation from the strict application of your code allows the sign to be positioned on a site in a way that effectuates the purpose and intent of the sign, which is its readability from the targeted audience, which is our vehicular traffic. The 100-foot setback, for example, is not really intended for signs, in my opinion, but actual buildings. And in that sense, the setback would make more sense. But a 100-foot setback for the billboard would take it out of the view shed of the motorist, which is not, certainly does not effectuate the purpose of the sign, and would have other issues if that were to be enforced. In terms of the trade-offs, again, the purpose of the setbacks for the 100-foot, I would argue, are really for buildings, not signs. The proposed setback is most appropriate for outdoor advertising signs and tends to be the standard in terms of setbacks along highways. So it's actually a better civic design than the actual application of your code. In terms of detriments, again, I would submit there are no detriments to the deviation from the bulk and area standards. Rather, there would only be benefits. And certainly there's no impairment to your zone plan, because again, I think those setbacks are intended for uses other than the billboards. There would certainly be no substantial impairment to your zone plan. So for all those reasons, I would submit that the board, while they could subsume the C variances under the granting of either the D1 or D2, the board can also take comfort in the application of the C2 relief for those deviations.
George, one more question, just to go back to the D1 in particular, suitability. So there was some question as to, what makes this location, more particularly suitable than the other two. Now, Outfront is agreeing to cease that use, to remove those signs. So, is that a consideration? The fact that those signs would be removed, that those signs, those properties, the signs of those properties would cease, that use would cease?
In off-site?
Off-site?
Yes, yes. So the modernization consolidation argument is something that has mitigating factors that support the granting of the relief, the D1 or the D2, and also have public benefits. Again, as has been mentioned, the removal of a number of non-conforming sign faces in the area, which advance the purposes of it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Williams on the C variances or anything else?
Did you address the town's ordinance for any sign is 15 feet setback? This is a large sign, why is it 3 feet?
So when you say any sign, are you referring to on-premise signs as
Yes.
opposed to billboards?
Yeah.
So on-premise signs tend to differ from off-premise signs substantially. You think of on-premise, you're thinking sign on a store face or a stanchion sign.
Freestanding sign.
Freestanding sign, stanchion sign for a commercial plaza, for example. The sighting of outdoor advertising signs, again, this has been at this location, at that setback for decades, is a bit different because the targeted audience is intended to have a further view than the on-premise signs. So the goal of billboards is to capture the attention of the vehicular traffic at a safe distance, but a substantial distance away, so they're able to take in the information as opposed to saying, turn right here, turn left there. So they're a bit different.
No, Plaza have signs advertising their businesses 15 feet from property line.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's different than what you're talking about.
Yeah, my experience has been the standards, whether it's Millstone or elsewhere,
Millstone.
the standards for, my argument is, if you will, that many municipalities have different standards for the setbacks for outdoor advertising signs versus on-premise signs for a variety of reasons.
We don't.
No, you don't.
We don't have any,
Yeah,
we don't allow it, so.
Correct, that's part of the issue.
George, are there any, before I forget to ask, are there any site plan concerns or from a planning perspective with respect to the proposed?
No, and that goes to the sub-purpose I and Mr. Vogt's testimony about the site planning issues, his careful review of the site and the site constraints, and ability to build on the site without any issues to the site itself. Any negative issues.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. So if Outfront operates every billboard along Route 33, and to expand on our attorney's questions, why is this site particularly suited when you can apply for this type of a sign on any of the sites that you operate along Route 33 between Sweetman Lane and the Turnpike? Why Millstone?
I should have kept our Outfront rep up here a little bit longer. Let me take a stab at answering your question. One is, of course, the permit. What permits allow the LED format, or perhaps do not? And the other was, and I've heard our representative from OFM refer to change in neighborhoods or development patterns that make one site better for the modernization than others, and to, in the same extent, other sites more appropriate for the removal of signs because of those issues. And he could speak to that much better than I.
So also, I wanted to ask, so we know that you have DOT approval, correct?
Correct.
Does that also mean that you have DEP approval?
Yes, Mr. Vogt testified to that we have DEP approval to reconstruct the sign. And that was provided as an exhibit.
If this was a brand-new sign being put up or being proposed that never existed, is it your opinion that the DEP would grant approval,
Well,
knowing
Mr.
that it's right in the wetlands?
Mr. Vogt testified with respect to that in that particular situation, the DEP wouldn't permit something new, but they'll permit a reconstruction, which is what this is.
Right. So the other thing, there was testimony given by, I think it's your engineer, right? That the bottom of the sign is 14 feet off the ground. Is that accurate? So if it's accurate, where is the ground? At the base, in the depression?
So that's an engineering question that Mr. Williams really can't speak
Right,
to.
because the
We want Mr. Vogt
roadway
to-
is much higher than where the monopole is being proposed to be secured to the ground. Maybe, I don't know what it is. It could be 8 feet, 10 feet, 6 feet, but it's substantially different because I was parked in a car at the intersection of Millstone Road going southbound and at the traffic light, and I looked left at the billboard, and it's like big, and it's like right in my face, and it's not moving. And I'm thinking to myself, this is gonna be pretty interesting, you know, to have this thing flashing 8 different advertisements at me in the time that I'm sitting here at this light. And I'm not, you know, I'm just curious how, I know you don't mind it, you're testifying that it's not a problem. But I'm wondering, that's why I asked the question about how close should it be to an intersection, and your other expert here said there is no governance on that. So like, to think that a billboard could be that close to the intersection, and I walked it off, it's 150 feet, and most of us live around town here, our driveways are 150 feet long in a typical driveway, and I'm thinking, you know, how would that look at the end of my driveway if I was parked there? This, you know, pretty big sign there that was switching advertisements every 6 seconds.
8, but
Every 8 seconds, rather.
couple of things. Again, I'm not the civil engineer, but I was here for Mr. Vogt's testimony. He can certainly clarify. I will agree, however, given the fact that the entire team walks and drives the site, there's definitely a change in grade from the road to where the pole will be mounted. In terms of the messaging, and I know this.
Just to focus on, if you go to C3, you'll see that change in grade of the plans that were
On the
submitted.
site plan, yep.
Right, on the site plan, it shows the change in grade, and, you know, that's, you know, 12.45 feet before the grade kind of decreases. Bill, would you mind just come up and clarify that?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
maybe,
just, you know,
maybe the question is,
Yeah.
from the road elevation, what's the bottom of the sign's elevation?
Relative to the road, correct?
From the road?
So I'm, you know, while I'm sitting there at the traffic light, I'm wondering, you know, how could this not be a significant negative impact for me as a motorist sitting here? And by the way, the sign is probably doing its job because I won't be able to take my eyes off of it, right? So, and it's driving me nuts, right? While I'm waiting there at the intersection to make a left or a right, a left-hand turn out of Millstone Road.
Bill,
And
what-
if I lived over there, and I had to do that every time I exited my neighborhood,
Bill, what's
it would
the,
bother me a bit.
can
I'm
you
just curious,
explain the
how
existing
is
and
that
the-
not a negative impact?
Can you just explain the existing, the proposed, the difference? Yeah, you're sworn in.
Oh, yeah, you've previously been sworn. Yes. Please provide your still under oath.
Sure. The existing and the proposed sign are at the same height. So
We know that.
they're the same height from the roadway and essentially from the ground below it. The new sign, or the proposed sign, is smaller than the existing.
Right.
Right,
What
but
is the,
the
ele-
bottom
oh,
of
hold
the
on.
sign.
It's still
What's
gonna be the
what's
same
the
height.
difference between the road elevation and the bottom of the sign, other than it's the same as existing?
Okay.
From, if I'm standing at, where my feet are on the road,
Sure.
what's the height from the road to the bottom of the sign?
So it's a two-point question. So existing, because the sign is larger and has 7 support columns versus a smaller sign that has 1 support column. So the road elevation is elevation 126,
Okay.
and then the lowest elevation of the existing sign is,
And just to clarify, I'm not asking for the base, I'm asking for the physical digital sign that has an ad on it.
oh, the physical. Just
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to clarify, because I know you were doing something different.
Okay.
So I want to make
So
sure.
the elevation of the actual sign face is, on the existing, is elevation 136.95. And for the proposed, it's 138.45. So it's a difference of 1.5 feet.
So so the proposed sign is 11 and a half feet from the road, height-wise.
Height-wise, off the
12 feet.
ground.
Yeah.
It's,
12 and a half.
it's 138.45 minus 126. So,
12
yeah,
12
about
and a
12 and a
half
half feet.
12 feet.
12 feet.
Yeah, it didn't seem like that, but anyway, 12 feet isn't that high. But it seemed like it was like almost eye level.
The existing one is slightly lower just because it's a bigger sign.
Well, my eyes were probably
Do you need a break?
4 feet. You need a,
I'm sorry, I was trying to,
Oh, sorry.
I just want to make sure your fingers weren't falling off.
Yeah, I'm fine, but a couple minutes, we can take a break.
Okay, okay.
so my eyes were probably only about 4 feet off the ground. So the sign was giving me the effect that it was only about 8 feet above my head.
Is there an elevation change between the intersection and, I don't know, do you have an elevation at the intersection as compared to the elevation in front of the sign that's at 127?
I do. The intersection, I have a spot grade of 125.65.
Okay, so it's just a little lower. Okay. No.
It's not much grade change.
Slight. And the distance between the intersection and the sign?
Yeah, about 150 feet. I walked it off at 100, I walked it off at 51 paces, 3.
From the intersection? From the intersection?
Yep.
Yeah, you're probably close to 200 feet. I think I testified to that last time.
Okay, I just wanted to
I
clarify.
walked it off at about 150.
I'll just, since we're on that topic now, I'll just give you one correction, that we had brought up the point of where the traffic light was based on where this billboard was. And what caught my eye was in one section, it said it had to be at least 100 feet beyond. And I think your scale, you said it was about 250 feet. I wheeled it off today and it was actually 132 feet plus or minus.
From the traffic, from the
From
signal?
the one existing traffic signal that's at the corner to where the billboard is, it's about 132 feet.
On the opposing lane, though.
I'm
Would you
just- I'm
me- would you
reading-
measure
I'm
it?
reading this as it's 100, you're complying anyway, that.
Correct.
It's just, I'm just stating a correction that it's not 250 feet, it's 130, plus or minus.
Right,
To me, that's a big difference.
I'd have to read through the record.
right,
If
and
I-
the
if I
billboard,
said
the billboard is skewed on an angle, I guess, to attract the audience going eastbound. So the billboard on Old Route 33, the corner of it, is closer to the intersection than the corner of the billboard along the new Route 33 at that intersection of Millstone Road. So that connector, that little connector road, I'll call it the inside of the billboard, okay, is closer to the connector road than the outside of the billboard, because it's tilted. The billboard is
So
tilted.
both the existing and the proposed
I don't know what
sign
the- yeah.
are perpendicular to Route 33.
Okay.
Because we're shrinking the size of the sign under proposed conditions, I'm gonna be farther away from old Route 33, which is what I'm gonna say to the rear of us, which is also a front yard.
Are you shrinking the sign voluntarily or because you have a technology limitation?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
So is the sign being reduced in size because you want to? Or because the modules, the LED modules just don't work for that size? Because the billboard's not just one giant LED. They're modules that are put together.
No, I believe our state permit is for a much larger sign. We could certainly put a 14 by 48 sign up here. We're choosing to go with a smaller 10.6/36.
Is there a 14-foot sign available in LEDs? I think the question.
No,
Yeah,
there has to
get
be.
you
You can make them as big as you want.
Yeah.
And get you
You
a 20
put-
by 60 if you want.
You can put the sphere right there.
They're
Right,
endless.
right.
They could be.
All right.
They could be.
Let's take a 5-minute break so our court reporter's fingers don't fall off.
May I ask, for our planner, Mr. Williams, so we don't...
No, we're not done with him. I just
Okay.
wanted to take a little break.
All right.
He's
Nice
almost
try,
done.
son.
You're starting to criticize little things I do. It makes me just feel like crying. 'Cause baby, something beautiful darling, you lost that love and feeling. Whoa, that love and feeling. You've lost that love and feeling. Now it's gone, gone, gone. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Baby, baby, I'd get down on my knees for you. If you would only love me like you used to do, yeah. We had a love you don't find every day. So don't let it slip away. Baby, 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 I beg you please, please, I need your love, I need your love, and bring it on back, bring it on back, bring back that love and feeling, whoa, that love and feeling. Bring back that love and feeling, 'cause it's gone, gone, gone. And I can't go on. Whoa. Bring back that love.
Mr. Williams, are you done?
I just have a couple more follow-up questions. if you
Okay.
don't mind. So, Mr. Williams, just getting back onto the particular suitability issues with respect to the D1 use variance testimony, with the benefit of some additional information, the lease for the subject property expires in 2032. Is that correct?
That is correct. I conferred with the operator while we were on recess in response to your question.
And with respect to the lease for the other two signs, the other four sign faces on the same side of the road, the ones where the discussion we came out of, why is this site more particularly suitable than those sites? The lease for those sites is year to year, and this lease currently expires April 30th, 2026. Is that right?
That's also correct. I did confer with the operator while we were on recess.
So it's one lease for both.
That's right.
And those properties weren't recently sold to developers or anything like that?
Well, and that gets to my other point, which I don't know that question, answer that question, but I will say that the property where these two signs are located, these four sign faces, it's 33 acres in size. Is that correct?
Correct.
And under the state DOT regulations, if there is a change of use and that particular property becomes residential in use, Outfront would lose its state license. Is that correct?
That's correct, because the permits would not be issued for those.
So we're talking about the subject property. It's roughly 0.3 of an acre. It's not developable. Is that correct? You can't put a residential house on that property.
That's correct, for all the reasons our civil engineer testified.
Right.
So the encumbrances on the property.
So whereas it's likely with those two signs that we might actually, it's possible to lose the state permit if there's a change in use, that doesn't exist with this existing site.
That's correct. Those slated for consolidation might lose a permit in that hypothetical, but with this one.
Are those, do you know as the planner what zone they're in?
I don't recall. I could find out, but I don't recall. I know they're not residential.
Okay. Do you recall if those are?
Oh, wait, oh, sorry. Give me 1 second.
Oh, sure.
The PCD, one is the vacant lot.
I just want to know what zone they're in.
Yeah.
PCD.
Yeah, they're all
Same as
PCs,
theirs.
Right.
PCD.
Okay. And they're not part of Millstone's affordable housing plan for affordable housing, correct?
That's correct.
So these properties would require use variances for residential use for your theory to go through. They'd have to go for a residential use variances and get approved before you would lose your license, correct?
Whether if they were rezoned, for example, that's correct.
Rezoned or use variance, that's
Correct.
Okay.
And then one more thing, George. Those signs are already pretty small, correct?
Yes.
They
I think we had the
are
dimensions for them in our.
10.75 by 23 feet.
Yes.
And so is it, in your experience, is it really possible for Outfront to make those signs smaller, given they're already relatively small size?
Typically, the answer would be no, given the Outfront methodology for site selection, orientation, and dimensions for their signs.
And the sign on the subject property we're talking about, that's 12 feet by 49.33 feet. Is that, in your opinion, small sign, larger sign?
Smaller.
Yeah.
And you heard Mr. Vogt talk about what the permit would allow at the site, and you heard the Outfront representative discuss in his testimony about the different size templates that are typical for outdoor advertising signs.
But the existing sign on the subject property at being at 12 feet by 49.33 feet, Outfront was able to make that sign smaller when it modernized it.
Correct.
Correct?
Roughly
Versus.
400 square feet.
Right, versus these other signs, whereas they're already smaller.
Small, yeah.
So it would be unlikely that
That is true.
Outfront would do that.
Correct.
Right?
Is there any precluding to make them larger?
Other than permitting,
Right.
making this the subject sign, the
The
modernization.
other signs that are physically smaller, if you're going to quote unquote modernize them,
Which
is
we're
there
not.
anything that would prohibit from you, instead of making it smaller, to make it larger?
Well, I can just say, for the record, with respect to the DOT permitting for those signs, they're at, 506 square feet. So total square footage DOT permitting for those signs would be 1,012 square feet, whereas right now they're 989 square feet. So we could make them slightly larger under the existing NJDOT permits, but we couldn't make them substantially larger. That's all I had.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Williams? I do not as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Commissioners.
for your-
Council, do you have anything further before we open up to the public?
I got a couple questions for, maybe go back to our out front media rep and maybe engineering.
You can either do it before the public, no, it's up to you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman. It's your call.
okay, either way.
It's up to you. Not my
Do you want to
game.
do? You wanna
It's
do
up to him, whatever he
Public,
wants
public
to do.
questioning for George, or we're not?
Well, we're gonna do public questioning for everybody.
For
I
everybody?
don't have any, no, George, we're good.
Okay,
with
so
Mr.
how about we do,
Williams.
if you have additional questions for Ron and Ron Sotelo and Bill Voigt, how about we do that now, and then we'll do public questioning for everybody?
Okay, that's fine. Fair enough. Ron, come on down.
All right.
So one of the questions I have for you is based on the site suitability, site selection, and you had mentioned is typically a 70-30, ratio of local versus outside just the local area.
Correct.
From my perspective, we don't have an overabundance of businesses that, for Millstone, that would probably benefit as much compared to, let's say, Manalapan or Monroe. Were any sites considered further down, either way, east or west on Route 33, that might give you a better site suitability?
It's part of our analysis, not only from a sales perspective, is part of it, like the location, we talked about Gateway and all of that. It's also part of it is compared to like some other sites, this particular lot, there's no risk of future development. It's really the only use you can put on the lot. So we look at that. We have a long-term lease there. We look at what the longevity might be to be at a particular site. Those other sites have those large parcels. We also look at, from a planning perspective, even like what's the merits of the application. So to make this bigger sign smaller from a planning perspective is part of what we consider as suitability, as site suitability. Whereas the other locations, yeah, you could make them bigger, but then you're actually, when you do your expanding a non-conforming use, you're further expanding it. In this case, we're actually reducing it. So we do look at the merits of planning, aside from the sales, location, and all of that goes into our analysis of site suitability.
Okay, so then the general question, just to summarize, so was Manalapan or Monroe considered?
So we have several towns we look at. We don't, we might have some existing signs that we would take a look at. We wouldn't preclude those towns, but this was selected by sales for the location and the merits of the case to be at this particular site. So to answer your question, we do look at other sites. In this case, the best one we looked at was this for the reasons that I stated.
Okay, one other general question for you, getting back to what Mr. Lambros was saying, the refresh rate at 8 seconds. Do you have the capability to change that to 10 or 20 seconds to reduce the number of, refresh of advertising?
Yeah, we could do that. We generally like to be pursuant to the state regulation, which is the recommended of 8 seconds. But should the board look at that as a condition of approval, we could look at some other durations, like 10 seconds, for instance.
And you require it to be 24 hours a day, 365 on, correct?
24/7, we like to operate the sign, yes.
And one last question I have at the moment, when it came to the brightness or the lumens, did you give us testimony on that? Was that
I
one
think
of
the engineer, but
Right,
generally I
okay.
could say over ambient, I believe it's 0.3, but the engineer could confirm how that
He
works.
did provide testimony on that.
Yeah, he did. Okay, because I think it was like, during the day, it was at 100% then, but it's turned down at nighttime.
That's
but it's
correct,
still-
just like your dashboard or your phone, the idea would be, you have to be able to read it, the light is just there to make it readable. So if it was so bright at night, you wouldn't even be able to read it. So it dims itself down through the photocell and the time of operation, so automatically dims down. So we're not competing.
Unlike the existing.
Unlike the existing, that is indirect illumination, which shines up against the board and bounces off, and that stays consistent at that intensity.
Does DOT oversees the lighting situation as far as the permitting?
They have general statutes in their Roadside Control Act that talks about, I don't believe they give specific numbers, but it does talk about regulations that they don't want it to be, certain brightness or glare that would cause distraction. They do have that in the general statute of the Roadside Control Act.
Ron, just so it's on the record from you, can you just speak a little bit about the fact that the size of the subject sign that exists on the subject property, 12 feet by 49.33 feet, and how that, if at all, gives Outfront the ability to make a smaller sign versus those other signs that are being discussed for removal, which are 10.75 by 23 feet?
Right, so in what context, like from a state permitting standpoint, or? Just
from a business perspective, that is Outfront, would they make a sign like this smaller? The smaller signs, the 10.75 by 23 feet, is this sign was picked because it's 12 feet by 49.33 feet, it could be made smaller. It's a bigger sign.
Yeah,
right?
so it's really from a planning perspective, like what the merits of the case are. So yes, you could make those other signs larger, but then you're intensifying or making them larger. This one, we have the ability to make it smaller and make a better application because it's already large, and we have the ability to reduce it to a standardized sign in industry, which we call 10:6:36 size, because it has the same aspect ratio as essentially 14:48 or the approximately 13 by 49. It's about the same aspect ratio.
Thank you. Anybody else have any
Yeah,
other?
so I want to expand on the chairman's question about, audience. So you testified that, or your experts testified that that the Millstone site is particularly suitable. I don't know, maybe it's because of permit or audience or whatever, but Millstone has a population of approximately 10,000, in Manalapan 40,000, and in East Windsor 30,000. If your advertising ratios are what that you testified for a local audience, why would you choose a site that has the smallest audience?
It's really about the state highway, the thoroughfare. It's the traveling motorist coming off the turnpike, traveling throughout, traversing the state of New Jersey, going east, going west. So this location is a major artery, and there's a lot of development and expansion. So New Jersey continues to grow. So on Route 33, it's a great site to be right in sort of the middle of those. So it's more about not particularly Millstone's population, but the traveling public that travels in and out of. And like I said earlier to your questions, the network of signage is the way it works is the local advertisers have the ability to advertise. There could be another sign somewhere, east of this location that promotes business in Millstone or promotes, future development that's happening in the township.
I get the whole technology. I watch the technology grow. I'm actually in the industry there. So, I would have thought that, there's more developed areas along Route 33, and maybe you're trying to capture the audience that's heading to the turnpike. I mean, most of that traffic is going to the turnpike. If it's going west, and if it's coming east, most of it is coming off the turnpike. I would have thought East Windsor would have been a more ideal location.
Manalapan Route 9.
We have some signage there. We don't have as much signage in this area, so from a coverage standpoint, it's more attractive to be here, to capture the audience of the, public traversing these roadways.
Because with respect to Route 33, it's not just, people that live in Millstone that use Route 33, correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm
It's
trying to
people in
make the
surrounding
point, that
areas.
the surrounding areas, all of the communities could benefit from the different messaging, and even, like we said, promote things happening in Millstone that make people aware of what's happening.
And I'm going to presume it's because of this little triangle of piece of property. It's never going to be used for anything else. It has no other
So your
use
investment won't be
whatsoever.
lost.
You're not
part
going to
of
lose
the
it, and that should
consideration.
be like the major consideration
Absolutely,
of it all.
because long-term, Plus, there's no risk of future development.
Correct.
Sometimes you could put a sign and the developer would come in and we're in their way, and we would have to lose the rights to the sign. So in this case, it makes sense.
If East Windsor had a triangle that wasn't used for anything else, I'm sure that they
We
would be in
would
East Windsor.
consider
right
that
now.
as well, that's correct.
So really, it's not really that it's detrimental for, we want to be in Millstone because of the popularity. We're not popular. So, so it's just
I
a
thought you
triangle.
were.
No, we're good. We're quietly popular.
Plus, the people use 33 don't necessarily live in Millstone.
That's
They live all
correct.
over.
Commuter road.
Correct, yeah.
It's a bedroom community.
Is it, do you think there'll be more signs like this on Route 33 in Millstone?
We're not planning any, and we think that the coverage and the need right now, this would be sufficient, and we're not planning on putting any more in
Well, other
Millstone.
companies could come put it in, right?
Well, this would, Ron, this would block, 3,000 feet in each direction, correct?
On that same side of the
I heard
roadway.
The road is 2 miles long, right?
It's 2 miles long, it's 10,000
So,
feet.
so there's room for 6 of these.
But with respect to, if you're talking about it's, from a planning perspective, and, obviously we can hash this out.
I
It
just
is
don't
from,
know
it's from
how
having
we-
an
But it
existing,
can
having an
happen.
existing sign, being able to modernize the existing sign is a different animal than
Yeah.
a whole new sign. And certainly what this would do is on this side of the highway, putting a digital sign here blocks those other signs that are in the vicinity. And I don't believe there's any more signs on this side of the highway
So
in
can I
Millstone.
interrupt
Other than
you
the ones
for-
we're.
Other than the ones that we're gonna remove, that
Mr.
could be.
I'm going to just interrupt you for
Yeah.
a quick second for some clarification, because when I was asking about the 3,000-foot rule, you just said something that piqued my curiosity with 3,000 feet on the same side of the highway. So that means you can be within 3,000 feet
the other
eastbound and westbound. So essentially, 2 signs could be within that 3,000 feet,
So-
correct?
The way it works is on that side, same side of the highway that these signs are on, 3,000-foot protection in each way. But if you wanted to go on essentially the opposite side, like across the highway, that 3,000 feet would not apply because the state regulates that roadway for 3,000 feet, not the one across the street.
Okay.
And we do have signage there.
Okay.
There's a sign across the street, I don't know, is that yours?
That's ours.
Yes.
And how many square feet is that?
There's 3 sign faces there. They're all 10.5, like the ones we're removing, they're all the same size.
That's also in a wetland area.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
they
they're
have-
approximately the same size.
Yeah.
They're known as poster panels.
Out of curiosity, the property that the signs are on, are they all owned by one individual or one company or one entity?
The ones we're taking down, I believe there's 1 lease for those. And the ones across the street, we actually own those. So if it's something that you want us to say we won't modernize those, we could stipulate that we won't modernize those signs that we have.
Would you remove them and deed restrict those properties, prohibit signage?
That's on company-owned property, we usually don't do that. We're already
So-
removing the other.
So we'll remove the other, so this is an addition, so we're sweetening the deal here. We're talking about removing the 2 signs that are on the 2 sign structures on the same side of the street, same side of the highway, and then across the street stipulating to not modernize that sign, which we own that property.
We own that property.
Okay.
Right.
And if it helps, we could even obtain the state permit for the 3,000 feet for those for digital, but not build it.
Yeah. That's a bummer.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? No. I'm good, thank you.
One more
Oh,
thing.
hold on.
One thing we forgot, you brought up what else can you build on this property. The entire property is wetlands. And we have an ordinance that says all wetlands have to be preserved in a conservation easement. But we're not seeing any conservation easement. I don't know if you want to have segments of this property being a conservation easement or just leave it as it is. It's up to you.
Well, wouldn't they be required for a waiver if they're not gonna put it in a conservation easement? All the wetlands area, that the entire property other than the sign?
You could put a
Wouldn't you-
condition there.
You'd require,
If it's
so,
approved.
yeah, true, so either A, you're gonna request a waiver for it, or you're gonna have to put a conservation easement if the board grants the approval.
I guess I don't know what they would restrict, the property owner would have to say. I mean, my understanding is we can't do anything there. Is that an engineering question to stipulate something? I'm not.
Yeah, we'd have to go back to the property owner to do that. I mean, the property is not really developable because of the wetlands situation, but certainly, we would need to go back to the property owner to be able to clarify to the board that that's.
But you are putting a new structure there, so.
Well, no, according to
Figure
DEP
it
permitting,
out.
with respect to the DEP, well, no, let's be
That's
honest.
you are. It's not a fallacy, just because the DEP permit says you're modernizing, you're tearing it completely down to
Everything's
dirt.
brand new.
And then building a new one.
It's brand new.
I'm just saying, but if that.
But it's brand new.
I'm talking, well, with respect to DEP permitting, the DEP views it as a reconstruction because the existing structure predates the DEP regulations and allows us to do that.
But could we have Bill, as my understanding is that the DEP only approved this and they would not approve anything else? Isn't that restriction in itself enough?
Right, correct. So I mean, when we talk about a restriction, the reality is under the existing DEP regulations, the only use that can exist on that property is the billboard use because
So
they view this as a reconstruction.
So then you'd have no problem for a conservation easement for all the wetlands area.
Certainly, we wouldn't have a problem with it. It's just, we can't sign off on that. We can,
I can't speak for the
we'd have
property
to,
owner.
right, we'd have to go and confirm that with the property owner.
Why don't we open it to the public?
All right. We got our engineer coming up. Thank you, Ron.
Are we good?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything different you'd say?
No, I mean,
I guess that,
sure, I can just explain it again to you. I mean, the permit.
well, while you're flipping through the pages, I got a question for you. I didn't see on the plan, what's the right-of-way for the existing overhead lines?
There's an easement with, I believe, JCP&L, as long as we don't exceed a height that we are permitted to.
Do you know what that height is? So from the lowest line, which is 115 kV line, what's the distance from the top of the sign to the lowest 115 kV line? And do you meet that requirement to satisfy whether it's JCP&L or First Energy?
We do, but I can get you the height for it.
Yeah, see, the signage that, the language here is from the JCP&L easement, we agreed to provide this as a condition of approval, says that the signage that measures approximately 25 feet in height is deemed permissible within the right-of-way so long as the height does not increase or additional signs installed without the prior written consent of grantee, which should not be unreasonably withheld. So we fall within that kind of carve-out. Bill.
Broad stroke of approval.
Pardon me?
That seems a little bit of a broad stroke type approval, but.
That's what exists
Yep.
in the deed. Bill, just going back to this issue about the restriction for the wetlands, I guess, the reality is we're gonna ask for a waiver for that. Just thinking about that, the reality is, there really is, the property's not really usable given these restrictions, and could you talk about that?
Sure, I don't know.
Beyond just the billboard?
I just have one other quick thing with the DEP, the DOT. With the distance to the billboard, did that specify whether it was a static billboard or electrified LED type billboard?
Say that one more time?
What you just read, does it specify what type of billboard? Whether it's,
No.
does it say it's LED?
No, it just says,
Whether
just says signage.
For JCP&L?
Yeah, it just
So-
says signage.
It's just signage, but do they know it's gonna be an LED billboard? Because there's different restrictions, because it's gonna be electrified, and now you're putting an electrified billboard close to 115 kV line. So there should be a setback distance.
The existing sign has electric to it. It has light.
You're talking about a light versus the whole sign, right? So I think you just need something that needs to be clarified versus, again, the broad stroke of the billboard is within the setback.
It's an outside agency approval, they're
Yeah.
gonna have to get approval anyway.
Okay.
So why don't you give us the testimony as why you think we should grant a waiver for our requirement that all wetlands in any developed area needs to be in a conservation easement?
Sure. So the permit that we got obtained from the DEP, that's a freshwater wetland GP1, that's a general permit 1, and that's for maintenance, repair of existing features, and it also issues a water quality certificate. So what had happened was because there were 7 foundations for disturbance within the regulated area of the wetland area, you have there's a wetland perimeter that traverses through the property, and then I have what's shown in this darker dashed line is its buffer or transition area. So that's a 50-foot transition area. So you can see that almost the entire property, except for a very small piece to the very far east of the property, is all inundated with either wetlands or this wetland buffer. So if there was no sign structure here, I would not be able to obtain a permit for a new structure there. I would not, there would be no relief granted to the applicant or me as the engineer if a sign or structure was not on the property. So the only use for this property is either a billboard. The only other one I could think of would be a cell tower. So in the merits of the permit that we got from the DEP, this is improving the condition that's on the site. They understand that you have a property and a use on it that predated the regulations that are constantly changing in the last 10 years. They're promoting this type of work. They want properties to be redeveloped. So you may have other applicants that come in where you have, old industrial properties where the DEP is encouraging applicants to redevelop those properties to get them closer into conformance. And that's exactly what we're doing with this site, and that's how the DEP views this.
So I don't, so you don't want to do you don't want to do conservation easement because you don't think the property can be further developed, so you're saying it's duplicative.
I think we asked for the waiver.
But you have, what's the reason for the waiver?
Because it's
you
not,
asked for it, you need a reason why you're asking for it.
I think we did supply a reason for it.
well, because it's not necessary because the property isn't developable under existing DEP regulations.
Correct. There's no reason to de-restrict. It's not like I have 10 acres of property here where I need to de-restrict 2 acres because I can develop the other 8. There's no reason to do that here. You can simply just supply the waiver for it.
Okay.
I'm going to ask a question, and I don't know if our planner can help me along here if I'm tripping over myself, but when Outfront applied for the permit to reconstruct the sign in the wetland, did the DEP or the DOT know that you were going to have to apply for a variance?
They issue the permits on different merits. Those permits stand by themselves and require the applicant to get municipal approval, whether you need variance relief, so be it. But no, that's not considered as part of either the DEP approval process or the DOT. That's
Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Did you personally apply for this permit?
The DEP permit?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When you, not for the DEP, for the permit for the sign from the DOT?
DOT, no. That's Outfront, yeah.
Who did that?
Outfront did, which Ron, I think, Ron's office did. I don't know if
Ron,
did personally.
come on up.
Sure.
But here, real quick, before we get into that, I just want to, George, can you just come up and speak to the waiver request? I just want to, sorry, before we lose our train of thought here. I just want to just clarify, George, can you just speak real quick to the waiver request that we requested with respect to the deed restriction?
Sure, and I think Mr. Vogt answered the question. I understand what council was saying about it being duplicative, being one of the rationale, but Mr. Vogt explained why a waiver would be appropriate. And under the, I think it's the Garofalo court case, if the board agrees with the testimony you've heard from Mr. Vogt, that the waiver can be granted without any detriment to the intent of the code, that it's good, sound site planning, then the board can grant the waiver.
In your opinion, that exists here?
Based on what Mr. Vogt testified to and my review of that site, yes.
Why?
For all the reasons Mr. Vogt testified to, given the constraints, the intent of the code will still be achieved based on the approvals he has already and given the characteristics of the land.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, just a real quick question, so we had, this has come up. When you applied for the DOT permit,
Yes.
what did you provide?
So we fill out a detailed application of, like a sketch that shows the existing sign in this case. And then we fill out the application that checks off multi-message sign, where it is, the location. We give a landmark distance from a particular intersection or cross street that they could identify where the site is. In this particular case, it's right where the existing permit for the static sign was. This is just an upgrade to a multi-message sign. So the application is filled out by, in this case, I direct someone in the office to do it. This particular person that filled this out is now retired after 45 years of service to the company. He's the one that would have filled this out. I have his name and everything if that's relevant. But I would have directed the application to be filled out. I filled out many myself in my career.
The point of my question is, it's not going to get resolved from answering my question. But the fact that you provide a sketch and you say you're modernizing it, and that's what they gave you approval for, you're modernizing, you're upgrading it. Did anywhere in the application say, we are tearing down the sign and building a new sign?
So in
Because you
that,
said a sketch, that's why I wanted to know if you
Yeah.
gave them the plans, which you could read as exactly, that's what I asked.
no, in that regard, the state really doesn't look at that. They look at certain criteria, spacing from other signs, spacing along the highway, things like that. In this case, the permit they issue, it's specifically, we entered it into evidence, you have to get approval from the local municipality. So that's where you submit your plans, your building print. But the state permit is just allowing us, we meet the state regulation for all the DOT criteria for a multi-message sign. That's the permit we have with the DOT. But it's conditioned on municipal approval to actually build it.
So then the question is for the DEP, when you got approved for the DEP, I assume, because DEP is a little different than DOT, you provided full plans saying, you can read this, it says I'm tearing it down, I'm putting a new one.
Absolutely.
I figured that, okay.
And then it's going to be in the wetlands?
Well, we're actually removing it from the wetlands. The existing sign extends into the wetlands, and we're removing that. So that's also a benefit. That's part of the water quality.
But you're going to be in, you're probably going to be inside the buffer area though, right?
Yes, we're solely inside the buffer and not encroaching into the actual wetlands. So that.
You
that
mean
was-
you're
that was
outside the
bonus.
you're outside the buffer or you're
No,
inside the
I'm
buffer?
inside the buffer, the entire.
But outside the wetlands.
Outside the
Outside
wetlands, inside the buffer.
actual wetlands line. So that was a bonus.
And they know that and they issued
Of
the
course,
permit?
That's
with that?
one of the reasons they issued the permit. This is what they're promoting.
Yeah, let's open to the public.
Thank you.
All right, 9:59, might as well just say 10 o'clock. Anybody from the public want to step forward?
Going once, going twice.
Going once, twice? No one? All right, we'll close it at 10 o'clock.
Just so I don't forget, I did want to have some, comment about the difference, the option between having an apron, having that facade, stone facade or brick facade versus just having the plain monopole.
I guess the question is, you're the applicant, you're designing the project, what do you think is best?
Well, right now, it's proposed with a facade. So if the board feels differently, certainly we'd be willing to change that.
So roll with the facade, screening, whatever you want to call it, because it'll at least cover up the monopole, and we can go from there.
Okay?
think we've beaten this to a dead horse. Do you want a closing statement?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll just summarize real quickly. There's a lot that this application does with respect to the township and the benefit that it proposes. It does that by way of making the sign smaller, by making the light impact is going to be less than what exists now. The positive impact by way of the use, the fact that the township can have use for this, not only for emergency communications, but also to advertise the township itself, right, and to communicate with your residents. And the fact that it's located right at the edge of the municipality, that it is on the gateway, so that as people come and as people go, that they can see that type of communication, from your township. I think those are all important factors by way of, a positive criteria. I think the fact that we are seeking to not only make the sign smaller is extremely important than what exists there now, and also the fact that in addition to that, we're also proposing to remove in the area of 989 square feet by way of the other 4 sign faces. That's an important factor. So, obviously, if the board were to deny that, those signs stay. It's also an important factor that the Outfront agreed to stipulate to restrict its ability to modernize that sign across the street. So if this is approved, this will be likely, from our front, the only digital billboard in Millstone, because it's going to block a large part of this side of the highway, the northern side of the highway. We're taking down the signs that exist there. Now, on the opposite side, we're agreeing to restrict against modernization, which, from a legal perspective, we certainly have a right to do, because this is the way that copy is now transmitted, and we discussed that. And we discussed, D1 variances, D2 variances. I think we provided adequate proofs with respect to that. I think this fits very nicely into the concept of a D2 variance, particularly under Burbridge. We are taking what is a non-conforming use, right? Non-conforming uses. You have 4 sign faces on our side, on the north side, in addition to the 2 sign faces here, and we're removing those 4 sign faces. And we're making this sign face smaller, these 2 sign faces smaller. So again, we're making that non-conformity less non-conforming, which I think fits very well into that. I think with respect to the D1 use variance, I think that this is particularly suitable. Why do I think that? Because this property, unlike the other parcels in the township, is extremely small, right? It's not developable. It's not developable by way of size. It is not developable by way of those DEP restrictions. So it makes sense to put this here because it's going to stay here. Now, if we put this somewhere else on a developable parcel, though that parcel could be developed with residential use. I understand it may not be in your affordable housing plan this round, but it's a very large parcel. The 2 other signs that we were going to propose to take down that we discussed as being alternatives, and that property is developable. Maybe if not now, but certainly in the future, in other housing rounds or whatever else may happen. That issue does not exist with the subject parcel. And I think it also, is unique to Millstone that there's this little triangle that is perfectly fit for this use. And beyond that, I'll certainly just let George's testimony fill in the gaps. But I think he provided a very thorough overview as to the basis for why either a D1 or a D2 use variance should be granted. And certainly from a site plan perspective, there's no issues with that. There's no coming and going, no noise. It's fairly innocuous from a site plan perspective. So I think with that, I really do urge the board, not just for Outfront's perspective to approve this application, but I think also from the township's perspective, because I really do think that if the goal here is to limit outdoor advertising and to make the township more conforming with its ordinances, I think you have to approve this. So, and that's where I'll leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Board discussion?
Just that I don't like the apron.
Okay.
If it was to be approved, I just like the single
It's
pole.
single pole, okay.
Less building.
Noted, thank you.
So I'd like to make some comments. I don't know where everybody's
Yeah,
at. It's been a long presentation, 2 presentations. I certainly appreciate it. You know, it's been very informative and detailed, but I do want to make some of my own comments if I can. You know, I've been on this board for a long time, and every decision that I've made has either had a negative or a positive impact on somebody or something, you know. And every one of them has been, in some ways, very permanent, or at least a very, very long time, right? So I take my job very seriously, and I know that, and I try to put myself in the position of how would I be, or how would I feel if this was going to have a positive or negative impact on me before I make a decision, because it's an important decision, and my role here is very important. I have a lot of authority, but I have to assume that I have a lot of responsibility too. So there's been a lot said, and a lot and less light and stuff like that. It's moving light. It's different than stagnant light. You know, if you lay in your bed and there's a TV nearby and there's a picture that just never moves and your eyes are closed, you probably won't be disturbed by it at all. But if the picture moves from one scene to another, that'll flash on your eyelids, right?
And just to make
Well,
sure.
No.
let him go.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, it's a different kind of light. It's really not less light. It's a different kind of light, But I still am tripping over the particularly suitable site thing, because all those sites along Route 33 that you have signs on, this one you chose, I just don't know, it's chosen because of, I guess, internal reasons. But they're not permitted in our township, in the zone, and if it wasn't there, it wouldn't be able to be built there, right? And I don't know how it advances our master plan if the master plan and the ordinances don't permit it. I just don't know how it helps advance our master plan. But, and I understand the whole 3,000 feet. I mean, my assumption is that the DOT probably recognizes them as somewhat of a distraction, and that's why they don't permit them within 3,000 feet of each other. Otherwise, they probably, people would be banging down the door to put them up, because it's a heck of a lot easier and cheaper for you guys to change content on those things than it is to go there with a piece of vinyl and a professional will go up there and wrap the board with a vinyl. But I just think that if I lived in that area and I had to come down to that intersection every time that I left my neighborhood and had to wait at that light for a minute and had to withstand 8 different advertisements every time I did, it kind of would be a little bothersome for me, and I would say, who is responsible for that? Okay? And they would have nobody to blame but me if I approved it. So that always helps me govern my decisions a bit, But it's just the way I feel about this application, And I don't know, I want to see if anybody else has any comments before maybe I offer up a motion.
No comment.
I'll piggyback a little bit on what you had said, Steve, and just in general, I do see that sign almost every day. So I will be going up to that light, and if I'm sitting at that light, I will see it change or refresh at least 8 times, plus or minus. So to your point, I may be saying like, well, yeah, that if it is an annoyance, if it's too close to the road, then I could say, yep, I'm responsible for that. Good, bad, or indifferent, if it's approved. My only concern is because of the rural location, and really is, aside from this, the lighting that's on the billboards now, is that refresh rate, you know, in the middle of the night in a rural area, there's really not much around. Is that gonna be too much? Yeah, so that's the thing I'm trying to balance out. So I'm not sure if, you know, I'm not disagreeing that, listen, there's not much you could really do with that parcel because it's very limited with the wetlands. I'm just not sure if, you know, a digital or modernization of the billboard is really the best thing for me to make a decision on. In general, seeing modernization, when I'm going up the turnpike and I see billboards, I'm like, yeah, it's great. You know, you see them, you know, on both sides of the highway. I'll be honest with you, when I see one billboard and I get to the next one, I already forgot what the last one said. So maybe my memory's like a fish when it comes to advertisement. So it's moot for me, but I just don't want it to have a negative impact on the rural setting of the area with this modernization of, you know, the constant refresh. You know, and again, I look at the suitability or site selection. I do think maybe Manalapan and Monroe, since they do have larger areas, more commercial uses than Millstone, that, you know, in my opinion, I think that might be a better suited location. You know, I think the 70-30 split would probably be flipped. It'd probably be 30-70 because we don't have a whole lot of local advertisement. So that's pretty much my summary. I think we kind of went over a lot of things, and I don't want to belabor it any longer, but anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns?
I'll, as always, be different than everybody else. I think their positives outweigh the negatives. I think all these other signs coming down takes away all that obnoxious light. I think they've testified this is less light. I have to believe them because they're the experts, I'm not. I think taking it out of the wetlands is a positive thing, and this is a better structure in this particular spot than what we have now. And since no one lives there, no one's really going to see the light. People who use it will see it when they use the intersection. I'll see it. I use that intersection every day. Do I care? No. So I think it's a positive thing. I think George did a great job of explaining why positives outweigh the negatives, and I think it just makes more sense. I also agree, though, if we do it, the pole only, because I think the other thing is kind of obnoxious.
I agree with you, too.
Yep.
I think it's a good thing.
Anybody else?
Well, after that being said, you know, I heard the word gateway, and I've done a lot of advertising with Outfront for years, and I understand gateway, but I also understand Millstone's motto has always been at every entrance into this town is an environmentally sensitive community. And to me, at the gateway into the gate, into this community, environmentally sensitive community, especially right on the Millstone River, putting a lit billboard, an electronic billboard there, is everything that environmentally sensitive communities are not. So in my opinion, it aesthetically will change the entrance into this town forever. It'll make a completely new statement about Millstone when you're entering the town, when you're leaving the town. Environmentally sensitive, Millstone River, I don't know, I can't swallow it. I understand there's a billboard there for 70 years, and that billboard had no harm in anything. But this aesthetically is a game changer. It's not a lit billboard like we've had for 70 years. This is completely different. It's a completely different form of advertising, and it completely changes the gateway into an environmentally sensitive community like Millstone. That's my opinion. I've been here for 30 years. I left Manalapan. There's plenty of spots in Manalapan. Did you try Freehold? What happened in Freehold?
There's no sign.
I did try to just one last
So I'm
comment.
just trying to figure out why an eventually sensitive community would want that as a gateway into it, which it's everything that we're not. It's not a rural character. So to me, aesthetically, it'll have a big impact on the town. And I could not do that as a representative on this board to the Millstone residents and vote in favor of this.
Anybody else?
Anything for me? Because you're staring at me, so.
No,
waiting for you to-
I'm looking at it, I'm looking at
I
it.
thought- Did I
I'm
put you to
trying to look
sleep?
at it, I'm trying to.
Oh, I tried to put you to sleep.
No, I'm trying to look at you.
Okay.
I'm trying to, just look at you, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually even looking to see, like, there was one, that, you know, if there was another type of billboard similar that was illuminated in a rural type setting, but I haven't found one. I know there was one being built down on 33 in Howell, but each time I went by there, it still hasn't been finished for
It is.
construction.
It
Well,
is now.
it's
Finally
There's
finished.
3 in Howell, and
terrible.
if I was a resident in Howell, I would, as Steve said,
Well, let's
who
just-
is responsible?
let's just
Yeah,
clarify.
well, yeah.
The ones in Howell didn't go before any board.
Because they're mobile.
Howell, and I've looked into it from my other towns, they just entered a it has nothing to do with this application.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do. They entered into a non-public bid to lease municipal property to a company to put a digital billboard sign on it, which
So
is
specifically
completely
for that.
illegal, in my humble lawyer's opinion, but it's completely not relevant here.
Yes.
So it has nothing to do with this case, it's just weird, but it has nothing to do with this application, don't hold it against them. By the way, the company is not them, okay, so
No,
just
it's not them.
just to clarify.
No, it's
Okay.
Okay.
On that,
I have nothing further.
anybody else? We're good? All right, decision time.
Okay, this is a use variance, at site plan approval. The applicant requires, affirmative vote of 5 for an approval, a vote of 4 in favor, 3 against is still a denial, so need a motion in favor of the application or a motion to deny.
I make a motion to deny.
I'll second it.
A vote yes is to deny. Make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, 'cause you know I'll mess it up.
Yeah.
The second was Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Chairman Mostyn,
Yes.
Ms. Arpaia,
Yes.
Mr. Barthelmess,
No.
Mr. Cadigan,
No.
Mr. Farrar,
Yes.
Mr. Lambros,
Yes.
and Mr. Borghese.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, council, and your witness, you did a great presentation. I'll have a resolution hopefully by the next, no, probably August is canceled. You'll have it in September.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Nope, we need a
No,
motion
we
to
need
go to
a
executive session, discuss pending and anticipated litigation.
Past
As
10:04, you can.
My pasta.
Yes, we are. I quickly talk about the litigation stuff, pending and anticipated litigation and contract stuff. Do you need a motion to go to executive session?
Sure. Make a motion. All in favor? Aye, 10:18.
Not yet.
Okay,
We gotta,
Could I have a second?
over there. Okay.
yeah, we're gonna.
You can